On Friday, the Hamas terror group officially ended the ceasefire, which has existed only on paper for weeks. Since then, a barrage of rockets has struck the areas surrounding the Arab-occupied territory. Shalom to Noam Bedein from the Sderot Media Center.
How are you doing?
So please first update us on the situation in Sderot today.
Well, today is Sunday, the 21st of December, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Since this morning, having 14 missile attacks against Israel towards Sderot and the whole western Negev. This entire weekend, we're dealing with almost 40 missile attacks against Israel. Things are pretty intense here in Sderot. We woke up again this morning with the siren Seva Adom going off, the color red siren going off. At the same time, the children on the way to the kindergartens enter the schools themselves. This is after a long period of time of what's so-called the ceasefire. The first few months has been relatively quiet. The last few months, we're talking about 415 missile attacks against Israel during this what's so-called the ceasefire.
And how was the Shabbat in Sderot?
Well, I know for a fact I actually stayed here for Shabbat here in Sderot. I know for a fact that many families here have left the town, and it was actually here for me. It was actually pretty hard to get a place where to go have a meal for Shabbat dinner, and therefore I knew that many families actually have left Sderot. I know for a fact it's been pretty intense over here. During the afternoon Shabbat lunch, having the siren going off, seeing at the time residents praying mincha at the synagogue, having the dogs actually running into the synagogue itself during the siren going off, followed by explosions. It has been a pretty intense Shabbat, not knowing what to expect. And you could definitely feel the fear and anxiety of the residents during these days.
So tell us, what was the effect of the relatively calmer days during the so-called ceasefire?
Well, definitely the first few months of the so-called ceasefire has been relatively quiet for the Sderot residents. You saw people having their daily routine lives, going out of their homes, but in the same time, there's not one resident here in Sderot that did not know that the rockets are on their way, that this ceasefire is going to end one of these days.
Now, what are the feelings in Sderot? How are the residents reacting to the situation?
Well, as I said before, it is not easy for residents. Many families have left in the past weekend. As I said before, this morning we woke up with the siren going off. Right at the time, the children were on the way to the kindergartens and to the schools, and parents were on the way to shop, to work. There's definitely more of fear and anxiety in the air itself. People are pretty much pessimistic with what's happening on the other side, having this past 6 months.
Now, the government is discussing what to do regarding what's happening in the south. How do you understand the fact that it is the defense minister and the IDF chief of staff who are opposing a military strike in the Gaza Strip?
Well, you know, if people like it or not, if people think that the solution is in Gaza or not, the fact is that it's not even a question of if, it's a question of when Israel is going to go all the way into Gaza. We're depending here on Russian roulette reality, on miracles, coincidences, luck, whatever you want to call it. It's a question of when Israel is going to go all the way into Gaza. When Israel goes all the way into Gaza, it's a question, are we ready to be presenting our side of the story, showing and creating awareness in any creative way as possible here in Sderot and Sderot's story.
Noam Bedein in Sderot, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.